Well, thank you, and good afternoon. It's great to be here to talk about what I think is the most important topic for this country, which is education. Education is a topic that Melinda and I care a lot about. In fact, we've made it the primary focus of all the giving we do in the United States. I want to share with you how we think education is falling short today, and yet why we're optimistic that that can be improved. We're thrilled to be doing this event together with Viacom because we feel that everybody here has a role to play in getting the message out and getting this change to take place. Let me start with a picture that will take us back to the past. Picture of the moonshot. And what this recalls for us is an era where the United States was the envy of the world. We invested after World War II in high schools and colleges and made our populace far more educated than the citizens in any other country. We advanced science in a way that no other country did. And people saw how valuable this was, and they took what was good about it, and they did the same things. They also made investments in education. As you heard, we've gone from being #1 in the percentage of our kids we send to college to now being #10. And that's a trend that has us going down and down. In fact, at this rate, in 5 years, we'll be #20 in that respect. So if we think about this in terms of competitiveness, in terms of where the great ideas and where the great companies are, it's clear this is an important issue. But I think if we take it to the individual level, and think about what this means for kids, what it means for our commitment to equal opportunity, it's even a more profound issue. It's something that I was really amazed when we first got into education to hear how tough the numbers were, how bad the numbers were. Part of the reason this is such an acute issue is that the job market has changed dramatically over the last 40 years. And so, in fact, what was acceptable in the past to have some kids who dropped out from high school, some who finished high school, and then a number that got higher education, that actually matched up with the job market. But that's less and less the case. This chart will show us, in terms of income, how there's a strong and dramatic difference between different income levels and different levels of education. So you can go from the top with a professional degree earning over $100,000 a year all the way down to somebody with less than a high school diploma earning less than $25,000 a year. And if you think of that in terms of your family, what that means, it's very, very dramatic. And things will only get worse. That is, the slope that you see, that is the decline in income as you have less education, this will be steeper and steeper because the economy is not generating jobs that the people down here at the bottom are able to fulfill. And yet it is creating lots of jobs up at the high end there. We can look at this trend over time and take it back from 1970 all the way up to almost the present. And what you see are two statistics here. One is the dropout rate, which is staying at a pretty high level, about 30% there. And the second is the jobs that are held by dropouts. And what you see is this unbelievable gap that started in the 1980s and has become much more dramatic, where if you're a dropout, there won't be jobs for you, and so you're completely out of the workforce, and there's all sorts of negative things that come out of that. And so more than ever, we should be rededicating ourselves to what we did a long time ago in building the world's best education system. Now, you might say this is a tough time to be looking at this because how do we invest when we're having a tough economy and budget cutbacks? Well, I'd say that figuring out how to do schools effectively, how to keep the best teachers, how to improve the average quality of the teachers, how to use new technology, is even more important at this time. And it's fantastic that President Obama's stimulus package really has provided a lot of money for new approaches, for innovation, for people to keep data on what's working and what's not, for the use of new systems that will look at teachers and see what they are able to do. One of the things that really stunned me was that we don't really measure the effectiveness of teachers. There isn't much review done. The people who are really improving the test scores aren't studied to see how they do it. It's almost a black art. There are clearly a lot of great teachers, but then some were not so great. And spreading those practices around simply isn't done. And so part of this new dedication that we're involved with, and a lot of government, federal and state level activity as well, is measuring the teachers, understanding what's predictable there. There have been theories in the past, and in fact the reward system is set up on those old theories. But as we look at those, we can see that those were clearly wrong. Here you see taking teachers and measuring, in this case for math classes, what is it that predicts them being a good teacher. Let me emphasize how dramatic the difference is between a top quartile teacher and a bottom quartile teacher. If all the teachers in the country were top quartile teachers, within 3 years we would be back as the best educated country in the world. We would have eliminated completely the gap between minorities and non-minorities in terms of their education level. So if we can get to that, we are in great shape. So what is it about that top quarter? What is it that we see with them? Well, starting at the bottom here, are they better? Can we explain when they're better because they have a master's degree? No, that's almost a zero effect. And yet $8 billion of compensation is put into that. Being from Teach for America, the new program, explains a little bit of improvement, but not much. Having been a math major explains a little bit more. But the real thing that predicts whether you're going to be a good teacher is looking at how well you taught in the previous years. And yet this is not tracked to see how your kids did on tests coming in, how they do going out. And what we want to do is study all sorts of measures, take videos in the classroom, talk to the other teachers, survey the students, get lots of information, and therefore understand what's working and what's not. When we pay for seniority, that means we're paying somebody $100,000 instead of paying them $50,000. And yet we might be letting go in these budget times the very good teacher who's making $50,000 and keeping the one who's not nearly as good. So this is something that can change. It's something that really needs to change. There are some great schools out there, and I encourage all of you to get out and actually visit some of those schools. Here in Los Angeles, there's Green Dot, Aspire. There's a network that's actually across the entire country, including California, called KIPP. Stands for Knowledge is Power. It actually started in Houston, but in the next couple of years, they'll actually have 100 schools. That sounds like a lot. Of course, we have almost 100,000 schools in the entire country. So spreading that around requires scaling up in a large part. When you go to those schools, you will be amazed. You'll be inspired. You'll feel like, wow, every kid should have this. I remember the first time I walked into one of those classrooms, the energy level was so high and all the kids were engaged. I thought, am I at the sports pep rally? They're so enthused. If somebody's not paying attention, the teacher immediately would notice that and draw them in and getting everybody talking and even having a level of interest that you often don't see. And so when that comes together, it's magic. It's a culture of excellence, a culture of teachers working together, using data, using technology. And so every teacher has an opportunity to be great. When we talk about technology, let's take the very best teachers and get them on video. So whether it's a student looking for extra credit or remedial work on a subject, or a teacher wondering how to illustrate a concept, explain it in a great way, that can be done. Melinda and I did some homeschooling of our kids when we were traveling last year, and going out and seeing that there are some great science videos and math videos that can be used now, you start to see something developing that we want to draw in, that we want to encourage, and that can make a big difference. If I'm a teacher who wants to improve, I should be able to have a video taken of the parts of my class that I didn't handle very well and show it to people. Say, how could I have handled that discipline problem? Or how could I have made that concept more relevant or engaging to my students. And online, people would look at it, give me suggestions, and help me out so that we're really working together and so that teaching is not so isolated. Right now, when a kid enters 9th grade, a third of them will not graduate. A third will graduate but without proper preparation for college, and a third will get a pretty good education. And if we look at the figures for minorities, it's even worse than that. The majority do not finish high school. A statistic I find unbelievable is that if you're a low-income child in this country, you have a greater chance of ending up in jail than getting a 4-year college diploma. So it hardly seems like a world of equal opportunity. So I hope I've given you a sense that there is a big problem here, but I also want to say it's a problem I think we can solve. You know, teachers do want to teach well, and as we encourage best practices, as they can learn from each other, as we raise the bar and change the performance system somewhat, it will catch on, and you'll get cultures like you see in the incredible charter schools. So we'll go from a few percent of the public schools really being excellent to 10%, to 20%. And yes, I think over time, to the majority of schools being excellent. To get the message out about how we need to do better, how businesses can be engaged, we really look to all of you to be as creative as you can be. I think there's a lot that can be done here, and so we look forward to working with all of you to solve this very critical problem. Thank you.